Hello and welcome to this webinar on creating a compelling safety vision for safe, productive work. This is our last Centres webinar for the year, although we've got a couple more for MIOSH. So I'll start by thanking everyone for joining us I think this is our 17th webinar so far this year. So it's been quite the journey. The conference line that we're using today is called WebEx. As you can see on the screen here, there's some instructions on how to use WebEx. If you want to expand or collapse a window at any time, press the orange arrow. All participants will be muted. However, you can ask questions at any time into the question box, and they'll be collated by my trusty wingman, James, who can share those with us at the end of the session. Just make sure to hit send to make sure we get that question through. There's also some supporting resources with this webinar. So you can see there's a Centres Vision webinar worksheet. If you'd like to download that, it's an editable PDF, some useful notes, a useful opportunity for you to take some notes on what we're going to learn together here today. You will also be sent a copy of that after the webinar, along with the slides and the recording. So stay tuned for that via email. As you're all aware, the mission of Centres is to change the lives of individuals and organisations for the better every day. We do that through the application of psychology and neuroscience to create stronger safety leaders and to engage the workforce in an aligned safety vision and mission. My name's Anthony Gibbs and I'll be your presenter for today, and I'm the CEO of Centres. I'm a psychologist by training who has spent the last 12, 13 years focusing on the application of psychology to get more people home safe to the things, people and places that matter most to them. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a worksheet that's attached to this particular slide deck. Feel free to download at any time, and some really good summaries of the models we're going to talk about today. Pardon me, as well as an opportunity for you to take some notes as we progress throughout. The agenda for today will be in 4 stages. First of all, we're going to have a look at, well, what does effective safety leadership look like in this space? We're going to look at current insights into why vision is important for organisations to think about. Then we're going to understand how the brain responds to a new vision being rolled out, and how the brain responds to change, and how we can shortcut people's receptiveness to that vision. Then finally, we're going to unpack some different visions we've been able to define, and we'll have a look at what not so good looks like and what potentially good looks like. And we're going to take you through some of the steps that you can consider in building out a very strong and engaging vision for your business. Start off by having a look at what effective safety leadership looks like in this space, and why it is so important for helping you achieve your organizational safety culture goals. On the screen here is a model which we lean on quite a lot at Centres, because it provides a really nice high-level summary of the different aspects that can make up a safety culture. So if we think about our culture and our safety culture being made up of an environment, so these are the physical things that occur within your environment, so equipment, tools, machinery, all the physical controls and barriers that are in place. We also have practices, policies, procedures, rules, and guidelines that are in place. We'll have the people who operate within the organization, so they're your teams, they're the individuals, and when we talk about the person, that's their individual skills, attitudes, and abilities. And then sitting around that is leadership, and that's a very conscious decision to have leadership on the outside, because leadership will actually impact on all of those items in the middle, what's in place, what's not in place, and how effectively they're actually implemented. So leadership is the critical element in driving your safety culture forward. If we unpack safety leadership a little bit further, we've done a bunch of research into this space over the years, and what our research has indicated is that effective safety leadership is made up of these 8 competencies that are somewhat drawn from the research in transactional and transformational leadership styles. So the 8 elements we're going to talk about here on the screen, but we're going to zero in obviously on vision in just a moment. But just so you can understand how these 8 pieces fit together and the role that they play, we'll just run through them very quickly. First, the first competency we often focus on is supporting. So supporting talks to supporting team members through actively monitoring teams' performance and compliance with safety standards. So this is about supporting and also driving a level of accountability within a team. Then we've got recognizing. So recognizing and rewarding team members based on achievement of high safety standards. So consciously and deliberately looking out for the good stuff and acknowledging it when it happens. We've got active caring. So actively caring for the health and safety and general well-being of individuals within the team. So a lot of this is about, do people actually feel like their leader cares about them as an individual? Collaborating. So does the leader have the ability to connect with the team on safety issues and decisions? So can they run a consultative process? The big one we're going to talk about today is sharing a vision of the team safety goals and communicating the roadmap to achieve them. The next one is inspiring. So this often ties quite closely to vision. So when we've got a vision, how do we inspire a team towards that vision? How do we keep them motivated and engaged in that vision? And then of course we've got role modeling. So this is about the leader walking the talk and talking the walk. And then finally, challenging. So challenging people to think about safety challenges and scenarios that they may not have considered otherwise. So that's not necessarily about confronting people. It's more about, is there a different way we can look at this challenge to get a better and safer outcome? So we're going to zero in particularly on the vision component here, but we're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about the inspiring, and we'll touch on role modeling as well. But before we launch into what the research tells us about those competencies and what leaders are effective at and not so effective at, I'm going to ask James to throw a poll up on the screen. So James has put that poll up on the screen, and what it's asking is, in your organization, what percentage of leaders do you think demonstrate strong safety leadership? So do you think it's less than 20%, 20 to 40%, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, or more than 80%? So if you were to think about those competencies that we just listed, do you think people are more or less effective at those? So James has got the poll up on the screen as we speak. I'm getting those numbers rolled in, which is great. So we've done a bunch of research into these particular competencies. So what we're going to share with you is some of the benchmarking data that we've been able to collect in just a moment. So I'll be curious to see how they compare. All right, James, I reckon they've slowed down, mate. We might close the poll out there. Excellent. Okay, so what have we got here? So about a third of people said that less than 20% of their leaders demonstrate strong safety leadership behaviors. Then 34% said that about 20% to 40% demonstrate strong, and then another third essentially said about 40 to 60%. So none in the 60 to 80, and a very small number of people in the 80%. So what I'm hearing here is that we believe that probably roughly half in the best case scenario actually have strong safety leadership behaviors. So there's a bit of an opportunity area there, which we'll unpack in just a moment. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the current state of safety leadership and what our research and what our data is telling us. All this research, just so you know, is available on our website in downloadable ebooks, and I'll reference those particular ebooks at the end of this. They're useful to go and dig into, because not only do they have this data if you want to create some fodder for conversations within your organization, there's also some really useful recommendations that you can think about as well. But to jump into the research, what's the research shown us? Well, in our most recent safety leadership research, we looked at the data of 8,212 people to determine the trends of how employees perceive their leaders, plus an additional 535 leaders to determine trends in self-perceptions. So this gave us some really useful information about where to focus. And as you can see, the sample group's quite broad. We went across 9 industries and 5 different locations. Industries from anywhere from agriculture through to industrial services, as you can see. And what we found from that research is that only 24% of leaders were seen to demonstrate strong safety leadership. So fairly similar to the sorts of results that was shared in the poll that we did earlier on. So a real opportunity area in a lot of the organizations we're working with is to build their safety leadership capability. So I'm going to dive a little bit further into this. Let's think about those 8 competencies again, but let's now zero in on the competency of vision. So how would you rate your ability to set a strong safety vision and to communicate the roadmap to achieve it? So just reflecting on yourself this time, how confident and how would you rate your own ability to communicate the organization's vision and the roadmap for the vision? Poor, fair, or strong? And look, it needs to be recognized that your ability to communicate that might not be entirely on you. As we're going to tap into in just a moment, there's a number of things the organization needs to do to be able to make this a viable thing for leaders to do. So the poll results have come in and they've stopped moving. So we'll give it another minute, James. 66% that have voted. Great. All right, we might shut that down now. James, thank you. So interestingly, very different results when reflecting on our own ability to communicate that vision. So we've got 45% who said that they felt quite strong in their ability to do this. 39% said fair to average, and 16% said poor. So that's great that there's some good confidence in the group here to be able to communicate that vision. Because what we're going to argue is that having a really clear vision that leaders are aligned on is absolutely mission critical in organizations achieving their safety objectives. This is reinforced by some of the work by a chap called Peter Michael Senge. So this guy is an American systems scientist and a senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management. He's also a co-faculty at the New England Complex of Systems Institute, a hugely recognized researcher in organizational learning. And what he's basically said is few, if any, forces in human affairs are as powerful as a shared vision. And I tend to agree with that. And this is, as we're going to dig into the research, what we're going to see is this is where a lot of underperforming organizations fall short. They go straight to the doing without actually thinking about the end in mind or where they want to get to. Let's have a look at, so we all rated ourselves quite well, from fair through to relatively strong when it came to being able to communicate a vision. Let's have a look at what our benchmarking data found about that. Well, the benchmarking data found that the average self-ratings of safety leadership, that people felt the least confident in being able to effectively communicate a vision that drives people towards a goal. So again, this is a potential gap, because when a team is inspired and engaged by a vision, they know where they're going, what they need to do to get there, and importantly, they continue to work towards the shared goals associated with the vision. So it's all those little micro decisions in those instances that leaders can't possibly keep abreast of are being missed when we don't have that ability to share that vision effectively. So that's the self-rating of leaders' ability to share and communicate a vision. If we jump into the 360 data, what we actually found is that team members generally rated their leaders even more poorly. So they felt that that was a real area of opportunity for many leaders, was to be able to share that vision. Now, as I mentioned, having a strong vision to unite people towards is hugely important, because it lines everyone up and gets people knowing the decisions they need to make in order to achieve that end outcome. But if we miss that, we miss all those little opportunities, and that comes through in the research that we've done as well. So we recently again did another study, which is called Driving a Positive Safety Culture, and we looked at our stratified sample group of 73 operational sites. We had a look at, well, what are the best performing sites doing versus the worst performing sites when it comes to driving a positive safety culture. So what we're going to look at here is we're going to focus on learning from the organizations that are doing the best. So these are the organizations up in the more mature part of the maturity curve, so at private compliance or mateship. So these are organizations full of individuals who take a lot of personal accountability and responsibility for safety and apply a lot of discretionary effort. So the number one strength for these particular sites is that they were perceived by their workforce to have a very clear and well communicated safety, mission, and vision. What this was then followed up by is a very committed management group that sat behind it. And this starts to make sense, because if we all know where we're going and what's expected from us, it's much easier for managers to talk to that vision, to talk to that mission, and to link the decisions that they make to that mission. What it also enables is better within team safety communication, because again, the goals are very, very clear. So what we saw is in these sorts of organizations, generally people were communicating better with one another as to how they were going to get to where they needed to get to. We also saw in these organizations much higher levels of individual safety responsibility, and we saw greater levels of team support for safety. So team support for safety looks like, we need to roll out this new process, or we need to apply this new safety control in place. These are the reasons why, and this is how it helps us achieve our goals, and the team jumping on board with that a lot quicker. Where if we were to look at the not so positive safety cultures, it's very, very different to this. You don't have clear mission, you don't have clear vision, you don't have a perceived strong safety management commitment. So vision is often the glue, or the North Star, I guess, that ties the whole thing together. So the big question is, if it seems like such a natural place to start, setting a safety mission and setting a safety vision, but why do so many organizations struggle to get this right? Well, there's several components that are required to demonstrate vision effectively. So a couple of these are, for example, if an organization lacks a clear vision to begin with, leaders can find it challenging for them to create a strong and share a strong team vision. So often this is an item that's overlooked in the busyness of just getting on with the job. Leaders might also struggle to guide their teams towards a strong vision if they themselves do not fully understand or support the organizational vision. So this can talk to, we're going to give some examples of this, quite vague or difficult to connect with visions, or perhaps the vision has been created without consultation of the workforce and people don't buy into it, they don't believe it's possible. The next one is leaders may also struggle to break down larger goals into smaller goals if the vision seems too far away. So we can set these really strong aspirational visions. This is what we're going to look like by 2030, but if we can't see the building blocks to get us there, people can quickly disengage with that, and it becomes just something that's unachievable. Another big one can be if we're not resourcing the team and setting the team up to support that vision. So if a leader has difficulty maintaining, so this typically looks like a leader might set out with the best intentions, but at every step of the way, they're met with a roadblock in terms of achieving that vision. So you tell me you want me to get my people home safe, but I can't get the basics from the procurement team, or my leader doesn't support the safety initiatives that I'm trying to drive. So making sure that the organizational factors have been considered is mission critical as well. And then finally, this is more of an individual skill piece. So many leaders that we've worked with will see communicating a mission and a vision as the job of the comms team. I had a leader in an organization not too long ago say, well, what do I need to think about how I talk to my team about this mission, that pitch? Shouldn't that just be rolled out through the comms department? What we would be arguing is that leaders need to understand the mission and the vision well enough in order to buy into it and communicate it effectively. So we'll then tap into the next component here, which is the brain and change. So we've identified the barriers here. What we now want to understand is, if we can overcome these barriers from an organizational perspective, what barriers do we need to overcome from an individual perspective? What's going to happen within the brains of the people that we lead when we're driving this organizational change? So how does the brain respond to change? What are some of the brain facts that we need to be aware of? Well, the first one here is our brain loves to predict the future based on previous patterns. So what our brain enjoys the most is repeating or applying the same framework to existing scenarios because it uses less energy. So when we look at rolling out a new vision to an organization, what we're actually asking individuals to do is to create a new pattern or create a new way of thinking about the world that they're in. This takes energy. From a brain perspective, our brain wants to conserve energy. And again, this goes back to the early days where we didn't have McDonald's and food on tap. Our brains and our bodies wanted to conserve energy so we could respond to our environments and survive for longer. There's still a little bit of that hardwired into us. So whenever we have to expend energy, our brains naturally get a threat sort of response. This being said, we can override that threat response by creating new patterns that will conserve energy in the long run. So there's an opportunity for us as leaders to frame things in a way that help people understand how this new vision or how this new way of thinking will conserve energy for them in the long run. And there's also some very clear steps that we can take to help people's brains more easily accept the new patterns we're asking them to make. So in order to understand how our brains process the world and process these new habits, I'm going to introduce you to a model which you may have seen us talk about before, which is called the stages of change model. And this is one of my personal favorites, as you're probably aware. So this is a model for individuals changing their habits. Could be any habit. Could be quitting smoking, quitting drinking, running more, eating less, changing dietary requirements, whatever the case may be. So how does this work? I'm going to take us outside of safety for just a moment and get you to think about any habit in your life that you may have previously changed. I'll go through one that I go through periodically, which is exercising. So it can be very easy. You might be exercising, going really well, you get injured, you fall off the exercise bandwagon. You get to summer, which it is now, you pull on your favorite set of swimmers or togs, depending on what part of Australia you're in, and things are bulging out where they're not supposed to be bulging out. In that moment, you might think to yourself, in that moment, before putting those on, you might have been in pre-contemplation, perfectly happy with where you're at. In that moment, you might think, oh, geez, I might have to think about cutting back on the late night desserts. But that might only last for a few seconds, and then you get on with your day. But over time, you might start to build other evidence to move you from contemplation into preparation. Perhaps you become short of breath when you join a sporting team, or try on another set of clothes. You go, geez, I'm going to have to buy a whole new wardrobe at this rate, whatever the case may be. You might move into preparation, and preparation might look like you doing some research, maybe even going out and buying some running gear or whatever your favorite exercise of choice is. And often we'll move from preparation over time into action. And if you're anything like me, you buy the running gear, it's all sitting there, it might slip under the cupboard. Then you get on with it again and you go for your first run. The first run really hurts and you slide all the way back to pre-contemplation. But over time, if you have a compelling reason or enough motivation for change, you build the knowledge of how to change and you repeat and focus and practice, you will actually form a new habit. And when you get to that place of forming the new habit, you've actually moved from action through to maintenance. And in a maintenance space, the change doesn't take any effort or energy anymore. And in fact, doing something different is what takes the energy. And some of you who are out there who are runners perhaps will know that if you miss going for a run for a couple of days, you probably feel more edgy not going for the run than going for the run. Same thing with wearing your seatbelt. Most of us would never dream of not wearing a seatbelt. It doesn't take a lot of energy, but it does take more energy than potentially not wearing a seatbelt initially. So what we can do as safety leaders, creating a compelling safety vision, is understand that the people that we're going to be working with are at a range of different stages of change. So the pitch that we need to create and the way that we communicate the pitch needs to meet people where they're at and take them incrementally through these steps. So we're going to have a look now at some examples of safety vision statements, some good and some not so good, and we're going to unpack those and apply this stages of change model to some of those for your consideration when it comes to your own safety vision statement. So we'll start with this one, which is not a bad example. We thought we'd start with something that isn't too bad. So in this particular space, safety is our #1 priority at blank. Little side note, I probably prefer safety not to be a priority, but instead to be a value or the way that we do things around here, because priorities change. But there's a whole new webinar in that potentially. So safety is our #1 priority at blank. We're determined in our commitment to the health and safety of our employees, customers, and community. We will continually improve our processes, demonstrate leadership, and promote comprehensive safety. We will require individual accountability, expect all employees to adhere to our safety standards and actively participate in and support the advancement of our health and safety practices. Safety is a responsibility of all management employees of blank. Everyone is responsible for achieving 0 accidents, resulting in a safe day, safe tomorrow, safe year, and safe career. So lots of positives there, right? So lots of reasons why it's important and what management is going to tie into this. Potentially missing a little bit of the emotional connect, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. This one here is we're sharing. I'm going to skip past the first bit, but go to the end because this is, I think, a fairly big no-no. In accordance with state laws and regulations, federal standards, and company policy, the first order of business at blank company is to ensure the safety and health of employees at all times. When you're writing these mission statements, my challenge to you is to think about who is the people that we're trying to inspire and engage with these mission statements. Are we trying to get the board all fired up about your safety mission statement? Are they the ones that are exposed to the risks or the hazards every day, or is it your workforce? So I think we can sometimes write things that probably sound really good to senior executives or board members, but don't necessarily connect to the workforce as a whole. So I'd be challenging you to think about what matters to them. And I suspect that the state laws and regulations might not be something that keeps them awake at night. The next one here, which is not great, but so we'll take a look at it so we can hopefully learn a little bit from this. I get a bit lost about paragraph 2, but we'll have a go. So blank companies is committed to providing a safe workplace for all its employees and those of its subcontractors. No single facet of blank operation is of greater importance. Okay, so a bit of a statement of intent in a clumsy way. Blank has an extensive history of taking measures to educate its workforce, ensuring all projects operate under the safest possible conditions. A robust in-house safety program headed by a dedicated full-time corporate safety director works day in and day out with all levels of personnel, clients, and authoritative organizations to identify potential hazards and rapidly mitigate their risk. Blank is a charter member of blank, 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 and is an active participating member of the blank, 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 blank. Feels like a fairly defensive position right now. If you get hurt, it's your fault, and we've done everything we possibly could. Not sure who this is pitched at, but it's very third party and very detached. Finally, again, this is probably easier digestible, but a little bit vague, and I think could have a stronger why. So our safety vision is to provide a working environment free from harm by promoting a positive culture and continuously improving the health, safety, and well-being of our workforce. Our commitment to our employees and stakeholders is demonstrated by our leadership team's management of health, safety, security, and the environment, and our continual drive towards 0 incidents. This can be seen in our global vision statement. It has to be blank. We are focused on creating a safe working environment where our workforce is empowered to step up, take action, and be responsible for their own health and safety, and that of others affected by their acts or omissions. So we would probably like to see a bit of a link to the individual reasons why people would want to buy into this vision. So there's some examples of great and not so great. We're going to dig a little bit deeper now into how do we start to find a compelling reason for change, and how do we start to put together something like this a bit more effectively. So many of you will have seen the Simon Sinek work about it starts with the why. When we talk about the early stages of change, what we would challenge you to think about is this is about creating motivation with an individual. So the way that you create a motivation within an individual to buy into a vision is by giving them a very strong and powerful why. And if at all possible, we want to tie that to some emotional triggers. So if we can start by thinking about, all right, well, let's assume that no one's bought into this vision and no one's going to buy into it easily. We need to tell them why this matters to them and how it's going to add value to them. So that'll get us from pre-contemplation to contemplation. So one of the tools we'll challenge you to think about is to start to switch the conversation around safety from being something that protects us from something to something that protects us for something. So it's about having that conversation that when we stay safe, we continue to earn money to invest in the people and things that are most important to us, as opposed to doing safety to reduce lost time injury frequency rates, or to do safety so that the regulator's happy, or to do safety so the executive gets a bonus. Think about the people that we're asking to buy into this vision and start the conversation about safety being a cost to safety being a currency, safety being an investment. So there's a number of ways you can do that, but if you keep that in mind, when you're pitching the why, it's about the why for the workforce that you're trying to engage, and your consultation process will give you some good words around that. So once you've identified some good connecting language for your organization about the why, what we then want to move to is to be clear on what the good looks like. And you can get really creative with the way that you structure what the good looks like. It doesn't have to be in a bunch of different paragraphs. I'm actually running I'm running this webinar again for the Q Water conference again on Thursday. One of our partner companies is Unity Water. They may be on the line. They have put together a cracking vision in a really creative way. I'm going to try and get them on to share it with you all. Christine or Kim, if you're on here, I'm calling you out. So what they've done is they've thought about it very differently as opposed to the paragraphs to communicate the information in ways that people can digest a little bit more easily. You can see an example of this in the next slide. This example talks about just getting people to imagine what it would be like to work in an organization where every person is committed to achieving the vision and high-performing teams are truly created. Individuals are genuinely accepted and supported by every team member of the company. And an organization where employees go the extra mile to continually focus on finding better and more effective ways to work. Consider what would be possible when we achieve such a vision. What you can see with this vision, although all these things feed into safety, it doesn't necessarily explicitly talk to safety either. So you can get creative. And again, it's about understanding who your workforce is and what language is going to best connect with them and in what format. If you think your people are going to have trouble digesting a bunch of words in a paragraph, think about easier, punchier ways to communicate what you want them to focus on. The next thing to consider, or the next factor to consider here, is the how. So this is to map out the actions that will get you to where you want to get to. So this is a lot about the how, and this will take us from the preparation, the action, to the maintenance. One of the key things we challenge organizations to think about is how do we weave this vision and mission through as many aspects of your organization as you can, but then how do you also start to create evidence that people are supporting your strategy and people within the organization see the value of it. So one of the first things we'd challenge you to think about would be, how can you tie what you're trying to achieve from a vision perspective into your values. So think about your values, and a great way to bring your values to life is to have behavioral descriptors. So this is what it means, or this is what it looks like to bring our passion, or this is what it looks like to own it, or this is what it looks like to seek mastery, or this is what it looks like to show we care. So these are the centers values that I'm sharing here. A book that I'd challenge anyone listening to this webinar to read is The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. So he talks about the values of an organization presenting the competitive edge that lifts organizations above others. And he talks about the difference between permission to play values and ones that really give you a competitive advantage. When you read that book, you may find that many of your values are in fact permission to play values. And what he's challenged you to think about is values should stretch and inspire people as opposed to be tick box resources. I think once you start to embed these, this mission and this vision, and you start to drive activities around it, you can also start to get feedback from the workforce. And again, I've seen organizations do this really creatively, where they film individuals talking about what the mission and vision talks like to them, or what it means to get home safe to the things that matter most to them, or what they plan to do to commit to helping the organization achieve these outcomes. So it's not enough just to roll the vision out. We need to think very clearly about the steps that are going to reinforce the messaging and get us there in the end. So let's go back to this particular statement and unpack it a little bit more. Let's talk about, first of all, the what. So this statement sets a clear tone about what the goal is. So safety is our #1 priority at Company X. We're determined in our commitment to the health and safety of our employees, customers, and community. Then we've got the how. So there's a decent how described here. So it talks about, pardon me, we will continually improve our processes, demonstrate leadership, and promote comprehensive safety. We will require individual accountability, expect all employees to adhere to our safety standards, and actively participate in and support the advancement of our health and safety practices. The next step here is the why. This statement finishes on a stronger note. Everyone is responsible for achieving 0 accidents, resulting in a safe day, safe tomorrow, safe year, and safe career. So an okay why, I think you could potentially tweak that a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit about, again, more of an emotional commitment or connection to that. So it could be something like, we do this because we genuinely care for each other and our customers and our community. We believe that everyone can play a part in achieving a safe day, a safe tomorrow, a safe year, and a safe career. So again, just tying a little bit more to what that means for us if we are able to achieve it. So we've got the vision set. So let's talk about maintaining that vision. So as we said, the most crucial part of sharing a vision is the authentic leadership of the vision. So running a collaborative process that helps your leaders understand the what, why, how, so what, to help them feel committed to it and connected to it is really, really important. But also focusing on them continuing to weave and link back to that vision regularly is so important. Creating aha moments is another big piece. So this helps teams see the role they play in achieving the vision. So, so this means that, you know, when we achieve a particular outcome or we want to achieve a particular goal, linking back to that vision helps people go, all right, so I understand that the reason we're choosing to do that, or why the vision is important, is because it helps us achieve that goal or get to that particular outcome. Attention density is also really important. So raise the quality and quantity of focus on the vision. The more you talk about it, the more you communicate it, the more it can be seen, the more it can be heard, and the more it can roll from the very top of the organization, the more it becomes a second language that people can connect with. So these things don't just happen overnight. They need a bit of deliberate focus. Again, always bringing stuff back to the vision. So reinforce the link between the effort and the vision, celebrate success and provide regular feedback. So when you hit milestones or you hit particular objectives, or even if your leader sees someone go above and beyond, in a way that they see as being aligned with the vision, actively promoting that just acts to bring the thing to life. And then finally, learn, adapt, and pivot. So learn from the errors, be humble in the process, and find solutions through collaboration. You might not get it right straight off the bat. So taking the time to reflect on what's working well, not working well, getting the feedback is important to adjust and continue to get better. So we're going to open up for some questions in just a moment, but a quick summary of where we've been so far. Think about who the vision is for. It needs to meet the workforce where it is at, and it needs to give them a clear why that they can connect with. So who's the vision for? And once you know who the vision is for, why would this matter to them? Regularly review and maintain the vision. So it's not set and forget. Talk to your workforce about how it's connecting. Is it still relevant? And think about the different communication channels you're using. Integrate into your vision into your daily rituals. Is there a way that you can link back to your vision during your pre-start meetings, your toolbox talks, your in-field interactions, your comms from across the business? And then finally, celebrate successes. So look for teams and individuals who demonstrate the vision and hold them up in lights. Celebrate the successes so that people know what good looks like and they can follow on from that. So we've pulled this data from these two resources that we've got on the screen. So driving a positive safety culture and the state of safety leadership. I encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to go and download those reports. There's got a bunch of data in there from the different people we've worked with across the globe, and heaps of really useful recommendations and considerations. So simply go to centres.com.au/insights and you can have access to that resource. I'm going to invite you to think of any questions that you may have. Just while you're doing that, however, a couple of quick notes. Firstly, we've been talking about the Zip Essentials program for a while. So this is our online psychology of safety program. If you're interested in looking at a flipped classroom approach to driving changes in safety culture, this is a potential for you. So the way it works is you attend some online learning, but then you have application sessions that bring the experience of the training to life. It's shown really good impact on changes in culture, whilst at the same time reducing the operational impact. So if you're interested in getting set up for a trial, James will ask you to put the poll up on the screen. If you just indicate that you are interested, then James will be in touch with you, and we'll just set up a trial for you. So remember, if you've got any questions, feel free to roll them in. Got one through already. Okay, just while that one's finishing off, there's another offer here as well. We've sold out on the 5th of November. It's obviously gone, but we've got another one of these running on the 11th of February. So this is the Leading Resilience Masterclass online. So this is 3 times 90-minute webinars and supporting resources. Through these webinars, you'll get to understand neuroscience of resilience, creating a culture of well-being and resilience, and navigating change, challenge, and adversity. Really powerful process to go through with a very minimal investment of time and money. The feedback we're getting, the ones we've run so far have sold out really quickly, and the feedback that we're getting is it's really useful tools to apply from the program itself, but you also get to spend time talking to colleagues from other organizations. So if you have any interest in that, I'll ask James to chuck the poll up on the screen. You can feel free to let us know, and he will be in touch with you to set you up. Just while you're filling out that poll, I'll jump into the first question that we've got here. So this is a question from the emergency services space. So how can I, as a safety professional, get a clear message through to an emergency service / first responder organisation such as ours, particularly the executive, that it's important that we invest in actual programs to serve and protect those who protect and serve our community, our people? So really, really great question there, and a challenge that many of the organizations that we work with will have. This is a Different organisations we work with will have busy periods and quiet periods, and many of them will be required to respond to things such as fires or floods or cyclonic conditions. So this is just to this person's asked to remain anonymous, but my first question back to them would be, it would be worth considering, if you looked at the incidents that happen in your organisation, the time periods which incidents are most likely to happen. Many of the organisations that we work with that have first responders will actually find that they may get less incidents and injuries in times of really high pressure, high adversity situations than they do during general operations. So I'm not sure what your situation is. That would be worth checking out, because obviously if you're finding that you're getting more during quiet periods and busy periods, and then that there's a potential challenge that needs to be addressed through a program. And that's not unusual, because people get ultra focused and zoned in during those high pressure periods, but then often become more relaxed and more complacent when things aren't going as hard. The other challenge I'd be throwing to that executive is having a workforce which is constantly thinking about all the little 1%ers or all the little positive safety improvements they can make, set them up to be more successful, not only for themselves, but for the community in those times of high pressure and high adversity. So we really want to encourage a workforce where we're continuing to challenge, to look to do things better, and to tie into that to get that end outcome for the community. And then finally, I'd be challenging to think about, again, that link back to the PB5. So what those individuals who are exposing themselves to risk deserve to have a safe and fulfilling life for their own families and loved ones. So I'd be really challenging the executive and the broader business to think about not only your first responders as first responders, but as people who have people that rely on them at home as well. So I'd be checking out the spread of your accidents and incidents and making sure you understand whether they're coming through busy or not busy periods. If they're coming through not busy periods, well, you've obviously got a challenge that can be addressed quite well with a program. I'd be challenging you to think about, do you have a culture of continual improvement that ensures that we're managing the risk proactively? And finally, are we seeing our first responders as people as well as resources to be deployed? So hopefully that's been of use. Just having a look, James, has there been any other questions come through?
No, sorry, mate.
No, great. Well, if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this year. It's been awesome to see so many familiar faces again dialed into this webinar. We've got 2 more webinars that we'll be running with Myosh over the next couple of weeks, and then that'll be us for the year. So we'll be back with a whole new suite of topics in the new year, and I'm excited to catch up with you all. Have a safe and relaxing Christmas break. I wish you all the best, and thank you for your support. Take care and talk soon.